Alrighty guys, here's the thing. When it comes to your kitchen, you might want to consider setting it in a way that you have control over what goes on in here, right? So when it comes to cooking and it comes to raising that energy, it kind of can go awry very quickly, especially if you're someone like me and you might get overwhelmed with like a recipe and its steps. Now that I've been cooking for a while, I don't get as overwhelmed as I used to, but it still happens sometimes. And so setting a sacred space and defining that for yourself is going to help you be able to zen out a little bit when you come in here. So first things first, when I say set a sacred space, is kind of think about your kitchen or wherever you have to cook your food as a ritual space, right? Because we're doing magic in here. So when you see people say like cast a circle and such, you can do something similarly, and you can always have them pre-programmed. For instance, I actually do have the sigils of the 4 archangels of the cardinal directions literally just like taped to my walls, because I'm defining this space as pretty much a never-ending magic circle. That way, if I'm doing some magic and stuff, I already kind of have that set, and I can just kind of reactivate them at whim as I need to. But of course, also when you have a kitchen, sometimes you might have like walls that end in weird places, or you might have, doorways or no doorways at all. You might have hallways that kind of cut through it. So it's important to also, with your mind, literally tape out where your kitchen starts and ends, because I don't want this circle bleeding into my entire house. I just want it to stay right here in my kitchen where I need it to be. So for that case, right, I would look at over where my kind of kitchen area starts as where my pantry and this outward wall is. That way I can kind of very clearly say, yep, once you pass that line, that threshold, that's where the kitchen starts. It excludes my hallway cabinet, yeah, but that's okay because it catches everything else. My fridge, my indoor pantry, my stove, all of that. And speaking of stove, when it comes to that, I really want you guys to think of your stove or your hearth or whatever you have to cook on, even if it's just a one burner like plug-in thing. I want you to think of that as your ritual table. We all have a concept of like alchemical, magical, super cool wizard table, right? Your stove is your table. So if you want to set that space, I would definitely consider blessing and consecrating your stove or your one-pot electric burner or whatever else you have. And that can be as simple as, throwing some holy water on it, cleaning it really good with magically infused cleaning products, smoking it from, inside and out with like some rosemary smoke. Anything you want to do that signifies to you that that is a cleansed and consecrated object, by all means, go ahead and do that. The point of sacred space is that you have a space where you can actively regulate your energy and remind yourself to stay in the zone, right? So you can absolutely cast a circle every time you come in here, or you can automate it like I do, or you can just kind of define it to one portable space. Again, that one-pot electric burner, if you have one of those, that can come with you anywhere. So wherever that is, it can kind of become a little satellite bubble for a sacred space. And of course, these are all tips that are very much if you have a kitchen, if you have a house. And so if you don't, right, again, that's that one-pot burner. You could also make a little Altoid altar, which would be relevant, right, since Altoids are technically a food. You can have those little Altoid tin altars that you can carry them with you. Another thing you can do in your kitchen is actually put up shelves. So I don't have any shelves up in here, but I do have this ledge where I have my house spirit kind of spot, and that's where he can sit for where I put the offerings, things like that. But you can also put up shelves, be they corner shelves, be they higher up shelves, where you can set sacred things, things to your gods or any other spirits that you have in the house. If you are a devotee of, Hestia, this would be a great place to put something for Hestia. You can also customize it to make sure that all the things you need are always on hand. So for instance, I have, something on the side of my stove, since I don't have any counter space here, that has my most used herbs just on the side. That's a really good way to, practically set my space as well as magically. And so if you guys remember my video on cleansing your kitchen space, right? The next step of reconsecrating it or resetting it to be that magical zone you need it to be, it all depends on what kind of language and verbiage you want to throw in here. So for that original video I did, I had my Book of Blessings, which is a Catholic book full of all different kinds of things to bless homes, churches, soccer fields, anything you can think of, this can do, right? And so You could absolutely take some inspiration from something like this and think of it as like a layering onto the next step of your cleansing. Once everything is cleansed and reset, now's the time where you want to put the energy on it that you want it to have. Reset it and make it assigned to what kind of thing you want it to do. So for me, like the biggest enchantments I would do in my sacred space are anti-anxiety charms, in which case maybe you might have some herbs hanging around your kitchen like dried lavender or dried lemon balm. Maybe you might have something maybe to set it for thinking, right? To set it for intellectual stuff, in which case maybe hang some parsley, maybe hang borage or any other kind of such flowers. Now that you've wiped all the old energy off, think about what color and shape you want your sacred space to take once you've defined it and cleansed it. And you can bless your stove with that as well. You can bless your tabletop, right? You can bless different items for different things. So obviously my tabletop is kind of my counter space, but if I had it as more of just a community space, I'd be trying to wash that down with like lemon scented cleaning materials for a vibe of like friendship, community, love, all that kind of stuff. You can also wash your floors with a certain kind of tea or, soak or wash that'll enhance basically everywhere that you set as your space to create kind of a supercharged area, right? You have your circle cast, you have your stove consecrated, and the very floor that you're walking on is blessed with your intentions. That's important. But when it comes to your sacred space, the first step is to define what that space is, how much space you have, what you have to work with, whether or not it's a public or private space, right? So if it's a public space, obviously, and people don't want you doing witchy stuff, it's going to be a lot harder. But in that case, it's better to just take what tools you have. If you have like a special spatula or a special pan you always like to use, bless and consecrate that spatula and pan if you can, and just kind of go with it. Sacred space doesn't have to be a literal physical space like a whole kitchen. Space can be something like the tools that you're using, right? The space in your pan can be sacred space. You can absolutely take that entire pot worth of that, good 2 quarts of space and bless that to be the space where the magic happens. It really all depends on how creative you want to get to it and what you want to define as space. Whether it's something you are standing in, whether it's something your food is going into, it entirely depends on what you want to make out of it and then what you want to bless it with. So these are just some ways to think a little bit more creatively as you are in your kitchen working with what you got. And I will see you guys next week for a discussion on how to get a scant pantry meal together when you have literally no groceries. See ya! By the way, if you want to see these videos 2 weeks earlier, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you not only get all these videos, but also recipe cards, specific deity profiles, and lots of other interesting things to look at. Video tiers start at $10 a month, so definitely consider checking it out.